There is someone out there right now, thinking about you in a way you cannot feel, saying your name in silence, replaying your face in their mind like a memory they're afraid to lose. And what unsettles me is this: you have no idea how deeply you exist in their world. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe and like this video, because what you're about to hear might change the way you see people forever. You think attraction is obvious. You think if someone wants you, they'll show it clearly, loudly, unmistakably. But human emotions don't work that way, especially not when it comes to women. Desire, fear, longing, they don't walk in straight lines. They hide, they hesitate, they whisper instead of shout. And somewhere in that silence, there is a woman who has already imagined sitting across from you, talking to you, not small talk, not surface-level nonsense, real conversation, the kind that exposes who you are beneath everything you pretend to be. You didn't notice her. That's the part that stings when you finally realize it. Because while you were living your life, focused on your routine, chasing your goals, distracted by what's loud and obvious, she was quietly observing, watching how you speak, how you react, how you carry yourself when you think no one is paying attention. And slowly, without even deciding to, she chose you in her mind. Not because you're perfect, not because you tried to impress her, but because something about you felt real in a world full of performance, and that's rare. You became a kind of emotional safe place she's never even stepped into physically. Do you understand how powerful that is? There are people who are liked, and then there are people who are felt. You are being felt. And right now, whether you believe it or not, there is someone hoping, quietly, almost fearfully, that life gives her a chance to meet you, to sit with you, to finally speak the words she's been holding back. The question is, if that moment comes, will you recognize it? You assume that if someone truly wanted to meet you, they would just make it happen, that they would walk up to you, message you, or create some obvious moment where everything becomes clear. But that belief is built on logic, and attraction, especially for a woman, is rarely logical. Because what she feels for you didn't begin loudly. It built itself in quiet moments you never noticed. A glance that lasted a second longer than necessary. A conversation where she remembered every detail, even when you forgot what you said. A small shift in her energy when you entered the room, something you probably brushed off as nothing. But to her, it was everything. You have to understand something uncomfortable. When a woman feels something deep, she doesn't always rush toward it. She studies it. She questions it. She protects it. Especially if she senses that you are not like the others. Because you didn't chase her. You didn't try too hard to impress her. You didn't perform for attention. And ironically, that's exactly what made her notice you. There's a difference between men who seek validation and men who unknowingly create emotional gravity. You fall into the second category more than you realize, and that kind of presence, it pulls people in without permission. But here's where it becomes complicated. The stronger her feelings grow, the more cautious she becomes. Not because she doesn't want you, but because she does. And that desire comes with risk, rejection, misinterpretation, losing the image she has carefully built of you in her mind. So instead of moving closer, she pauses. She watches from a distance, hoping for a signal. Something small from you that tells her it's safe to step forward. A moment of eye contact that lingers. A conversation that feels just a little more personal. A sign that you see her, not just as another face, but as someone who matters. And when that signal doesn't come clearly enough, she retreats back into silence. Not because the feeling disappeared, but because it became too real. So now there's this invisible tension. A connection that exists only on one side of awareness. She's already imagined meeting you, talking to you, understanding you in ways no one else has tried. And you? You're still wondering if anyone even sees you at all. But someone does, more deeply than you think. And here is where most men misunderstand everything. They believe silence means absence. No message, no confession, no clear move, so they assume nothing is happening. But psychologically, silence is often where the strongest emotions grow, not where they disappear. Because in her mind, she is not thinking about you. She is rehearsing you, replaying conversations that never fully happened, imagining what your voice would sound like if you said her name differently, constructing entire emotional scenarios where she finally gets the courage to talk to you without hesitation. And the strange part is, she is not even fully aware of how often it happens. That's how attraction works when it's deep enough. It becomes automatic, subconscious. It slips into thoughts when she's doing something completely unrelated, working, driving, lying in bed, pretending to focus on something else. And then suddenly, there you are in her mind again. Not as a fantasy of perfection, but as a feeling she can't categorize. This is where psychology becomes important. The human brain does something very specific when it encounters emotional uncertainty mixed with attraction. It creates meaning where there is none yet defined. It tries to solve the person, to understand them, to predict them. And you became that puzzle for her, not because you tried to be mysterious, but because you were consistent in your authenticity. You didn't over-explain yourself. You didn't chase approval. You didn't bend your personality to fit expectations. And that unpredictability is what kept her mentally engaged. But here's the truth that most men never hear. If a woman is thinking about meeting you, she is already emotionally involved more than she admits. Meeting you is not the beginning of her interest. It is the continuation of it. And somewhere inside her, there is a conflict happening every single day. One part of her wants to take the risk, to talk to you, to see what happens, to stop imagining and start knowing. But the other part is afraid that reality will not match what her mind has built. Because in her imagination, you are already slightly more meaningful than you appear in reality. Not because you are perfect, but because you are unknown. And unknown people become emotionally exaggerated in the mind. So she waits. Not because she forgot you, but because forgetting you feels impossible now. And now I want you to understand something most men never hear clearly enough. She is not confused about whether she feels something. She is confused about what to do with it. Because when a woman starts imagining a man in her life repeatedly, her mind does something very specific. It starts building emotional attachment before any physical connection exists. That means she is already emotionally rehearsing a version of closeness with you, without ever confirming if it's real. She might imagine talking to you late at night. She might imagine how you would react if she told you something personal. She might even imagine how safe or unsafe she would feel opening up to you. These are not conscious decisions. They are emotional simulations the brain creates when someone feels intrigue mixed with attraction. And the more she runs those simulations, the more familiar you become in her internal world. That's why meeting you feels less like starting something new and more like making something imagined real. But here is where hesitation enters. Because reality has weight. Reality can disappoint. Reality can break the version of you she has carefully built in her mind. So she delays. Not because she lacks interest, but because she is protecting something inside herself that already feels attached. And this is where your awareness changes everything. You have probably crossed paths with her without realizing the depth of what was happening internally on her side. Maybe she spoke to you more softly than others. Maybe she looked at you and then quickly looked away. Maybe she found reasons to be near you that didn't seem intentional on the surface. But emotionally, it was intentional. Because when a woman is drawn to a man at this level, she doesn't always approach directly. She tests safety through proximity. She observes your reactions. She studies whether you are emotionally available or emotionally closed. She tries to feel if you would receive her presence or dismiss it. And every small interaction becomes data for her mind. That's why even the smallest moment with you can stay in her memory longer than expected. But here is the part that shifts everything. If you remain unaware of this dynamic, you will keep assuming nothing is happening, when in reality, something already started a long time ago. It just hasn't been spoken yet. And now I want to be very direct with you, because this is where most men lose opportunities they never even knew they had. When a woman is emotionally invested in the idea of meeting you, she does not always express it through obvious actions. Instead, she begins to create permission moments in her life. Small internal openings where she tells herself, if he does this, then I will respond. Or, If we end up in the same space again, then maybe I'll talk to him. But notice something important here. She is waiting for conditions, not chasing outcomes. Because in her mind, approaching you is not just a casual interaction anymore. It has weight, meaning, risk. And the more meaningful you become internally to her, the more careful she becomes externally. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like hesitation that doesn't match the situation. It looks like her being slightly more present when you are near, but still holding back. It looks like moments where conversation could have continued, but didn't. Not because she was uninterested, but because she was emotionally regulating herself in real time. And you may have mistaken that for neutrality. But neutrality is not what this is. This is emotional containment, because she is trying to manage something she hasn't fully admitted to herself yet, that she wants a connection with you that feels different from anything she has experienced before. And that is exactly why she hasn't acted yet. Because different also means unpredictable. And the human mind is wired to fear uncertainty even when it desires it. So she stays in this internal loop, curious, cautious, drawn in, and restrained all at the same time. But here is what makes this even more powerful. The reason she thinks about meeting you is not because of what you do for her, but because of how she feels when she imagines being seen by you. There is a specific emotional reaction happening there, a sense of being understood without needing to perform. A sense that she could drop the mask she wears around most people. And that feeling is rare. So rare that once the mind identifies it, it does not easily let it go. Which is why, even if nothing has happened between you two in a traditional sense, her emotional system has already registered you as significant. And significant people are not easily forgotten. At this point, I need you to understand something that changes how you see everything about attraction. Just because nothing is happening externally does not mean nothing is happening internally. In fact, the most powerful emotional connections often exist long before any action is taken. They exist in thought patterns, in emotional projections, in silent moments that no one else witnesses, and in her case, you are now part of that internal world. Not as a passing thought, but as a recurring emotional reference point. She compares other people to the feeling she gets when she thinks about you. She may not even realize she is doing it consciously, but her mind is constantly measuring emotional safety, curiosity, and depth against that internal impression of you. And most men completely underestimate this stage. They assume attraction only matters when it becomes physical or verbal. But psychologically, by the time a woman is thinking about meeting you in a meaningful way, she has already gone through emotional evaluation stages you never saw. She has already asked herself questions like, would I feel safe talking to him? Would he understand me beyond surface level? Would I regret not knowing him if I let this pass? These questions don't need answers from you yet, because she is answering them internally first. And this is where emotional tension builds. Because the more she answers yes internally, the harder it becomes to stay silent. But the more important you feel to her, the more pressure she feels to get it right. So instead of acting impulsively, she becomes thoughtful to the point of paralysis. She starts overthinking timing. She starts overthinking words. She starts overthinking how you might interpret her. And in that overthinking, opportunities quietly remain unspoken. But here is the deeper truth underneath all of this. When someone becomes emotionally present in your mind without your permission, it means you triggered something in them that feels unfinished. Not unresolved, unfinished. And the human mind hates unfinished emotional experiences. It wants closure, it wants clarity, it wants contact. So even if she is not speaking to you right now, part of her is still moving toward resolution in her own way. And that resolution, more often than not, points back to one thing: the need to talk to you, the need to see you as you really are. Not the version in her mind, but the real you. And that's where everything is heading, whether she admits it or not. And now we arrive at the truth that changes the way you interpret everything you've just heard. Because if someone is thinking about meeting you, if someone is replaying you in their mind, if someone is emotionally circling the idea of speaking to you, then the real question is not whether they feel something. The real question is, What happens if that moment finally comes? When she actually stands in front of you, when there are no imagined versions left to hide behind, when the conversation is no longer rehearsed in silence, but happening in real time, with real pauses, real nerves, real unpredictability. That moment is not just a meeting, it is a collision between imagination and reality. And for her, that will feel intense, because everything she has built emotionally around you will either become real or be reshaped by truth. And here is what most men don't realize about these situations. If someone has thought about talking to you for a long time, the actual conversation is rarely casual for them. Even if they act normal on the outside, internally there is emotional pressure. There is anticipation. There is fear of saying too much, or not enough. Because by the time she reaches that point, you are no longer just a person she met. You are someone she has already experienced internally, and now she wants to know something very simple, but very important. Was I right about you? And you will also be tested in a different way, not through questions, not through words, but through presence. Because when someone matters to another person on this level, even silence between words carries meaning. Eye contact feels different, pauses feel longer, small reactions become significant. And if that meeting ever happens, it will reveal everything that has been building quietly up until now. Or it will reset it completely, but either way, it will not be meaningless. Because people do not spend emotional energy imagining someone repeatedly unless something inside them was genuinely activated. And maybe the part you never considered is this. While you were waiting for signs, you were already becoming one. A sign in her thoughts, a question she cannot fully ignore, a possibility she keeps returning to. And sometimes, in human psychology, that is how connection begins long before reality ever catches up. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. When someone wants to meet and talk to you in their mind first, it usually means the real story has already started. It is just waiting for the moment to be spoken out loud.